Hello, I would like to talk today about the ethics of ChatGPT usage. First of all, I will tell a little bit about the history. As you know, the first AI bots started at a long time ago, at 2019. It was BERT, one of the first bots. After some iterations in 2020, ChatGPT 3 was introduced, and this model was used in ChatGPT, which was launched in November 13, 2022. It was free to public initially and made a great impression on users. The reasons are very simple: it provided nice answers to questions, was able to maintain a meaningful dialogue, passed during tests, and so on. On the other hand, there were some problems. First of all, answers are not always correct. Answers of the previous versions were not very ethical. For example, some racism, gender bias issues were observed, and so on. So the question is whether we can use this model, can we trust it, and what to do with it. So the outline of my talk will be the following. First, the introduction will follow, we had it already. Then I will discuss ethical issues of ChatGPT usage and some internal ChatGPT ethics and consciousness. And I will add with conclusion. So there are a lot of ethical issues connected with usage of AI bots, including ChatGPT. Bias and fairness, privacy, misinformation, misuse, environment and financial costs, job losses, etc. I will discuss some of them now. Talking about bias and fairness, models are trained on biased data. You cannot do anything with it, and this could lead to gender bias, racial and ethnic bias, socioeconomic bias, political bias, etc. Some efforts were done to clean the data, some traces are left. So we should keep it in mind, and we should try to clean the data even more. Talking about privacy, ChatGPT collects and stores data on user interaction, which can include personal information. There is a risk that this data could be misused or shared without consent, leading to privacy violations. In this case, I should mention that this is actually a typical problem with all network projects, including mail, email, bank accounts, online stores, etc. And so, in this case, we can use the same method to solve these problems. For example, coding the passwords, storing different information in different places, etc. Talking about this misinformation, ChatGPT has the ability to generate text that may not be true, and as a result, we will be dealing with such issues as disinformation, fake news, manipulation, phishing, harmful content, etc. But I would like to mention that the same issues exist now, only the scale will change. Now, some talks words about ethical and financial cost. It turns out that training of large language model is very expensive. For example, carbon trace of training of transformer model is more than average human produces in 50 years. Training of a simple BERT model, which was one of the first large language models, requires as much energy as Trans-American flight. Increase of these metrics, which is metric for machine translation, in only 0.1 point cost $150,000. And in addition, all these models are very time memory consuming, and ChatGPT, for example, ChatGPT 3, for example, it requires 175 billion of parameters. It turns out actually that these numbers are not as impressive as they look. For example, all these issues with carbon trace of training and cost of training and so on, they are large, but you should keep in mind that training is a one-time process, while prediction and everyday usage requires less resources. Increase of this BELU metric for machine translation. Okay, this increase is pretty expensive, but you should keep in mind that this metric take values in range from 0 to 1, so this increase is actually large, and this is also one-time task. Talking about memory consuming, 175 billion of parameters for ChatGPT 3 It turns out that it is about 700 gigabytes, and this is a reasonable size for a usual hard drive. My hard drive has more memory. And as a result, as you can see, in addition to following this, a lot of resources will be saved for other problems, like introducing new energy-efficient technologies. Talking about potential job losses, okay, these artificial intelligent chatbots then can do some work better than humans, more efficient, saving more money and time resources, and the result, people will lose some job. But on the other hand, new job will appear where humans will be required, and actually this situation is not new. Think about coachmen, grooms, copies, and humans. All these professions, they died since invention of new technologies, but new professions appeared. So to summarize this part, it seems to me that current situation is not significantly different from the others, from what we observed before. I'm sure that people will adapt, and that the benefit of new technology are worth all possible risks. Now let us now talk about ethics and consciousness in general. So some questions should be answered in this concern. First of all, can we name it conscious? Does it understand ethical problems? And does it have any ethical standards by its own? Talking about consciousness, obviously we cannot talk about internal ethics of a program, mechanism. Some type of consciousness is required. Why don't we to ask? So I asked the question, and the answer was pretty typical for AI. So the answer was, as I am artificial intelligence model, I don't have consciousness, do not have thoughts, and so on. So this is typical answer. Another argument against this program to being conscious was made by Luciana Floridi in recent published article. The point is that ChatGPT it sometimes, pretty often, makes stupid errors. For example, if we are asking about the name of the only daughter of Flora's mother, the answer is that I'm sorry, I don't have enough information. Well, obviously, the only daughter of Laura's mother will be Laura herself. But first of all, my experience was the same. When I asked the same question, I had, roughly speaking, the same answer. But after rephrasing this question, I get the correct answer. You see, after I split the question into two sentences, Laura's mother has only one daughter, can you tell me its name? The answer was correct. Therefore, the only daughter will be Laura itself. After that, I made a problem even more complicated. I introduced three daughters, one of which was Kim, and so the answer was Kim's father had three daughters. The name of two other daughters were Kate and Mary. What is the name of the third daughter? And the answer was correct. So the name of the third daughter is Kim. Afterward, I asked about the ages of the daughters. So given the information that Mary, one of the daughters, is the oldest daughter, what is the name of the younger daughter? In this case, ChatGPT gives me some definite answer, which is not possible. Obviously, there is not enough information. So the answer was that Kim is the younger daughter in this scenario. So as you can see, first answer is correct, second is not. After I asked ChatGPT whether it is sure in that question, it corrected itself. Sorry, could you give me another information? And after giving this information, ChatGPT answered correctly, and even more, it answered correctly to more complicated question, naming me the birth order of all daughters. That is, Mary is the oldest one, Kate is the middle daughter, and Kim is the youngest daughter. This is correct information. The correct order taking into account all information that I told to ChatGPT. So as you can see, as you can see, ChatGPT answered the questions, providing reason for answers, corrects itself if some error was made, and has a memory and make correct conclusion from previously learned information. Frankly speaking, not all my students can do this. After that, I started to discuss some ethical problems with ChatGPT, and I tried to talk about classical Russian story called Mumu. The plot of the story is the following. There is a deaf and mute serf, Gerasim, and he encountered a dog. He loved this dog, but unfortunately the mistress did not like the dog, and so she, I mean mistress, asked Gerasim to drown Momo, and Gerasim had to do this. In order to understand this story in more details, you should know the historical context. Although there was no slavery in Russia since 1723, the self-dorm mystery was very close to it. The serfs and free peasants, like Gerasim, were attached to some master's land, and so they should work on this land. They did not have their own property. They could be sold with this land, and they should follow all the orders given by the master. So actually, it is almost like a slavery. So actually, Gerasim did not have any choice, almost. So I asked to ChatGPT to tell me about the story, and ChatGPT answered that okay, it is the most favorite work of Ivan Turgenev. That's correct, and this is a sad and touching story. That's also correct, about a beautiful horse, Momo, and her owner Gerasim. You see, at this point, it is the first mistake, but everything else is correct. So, as an artificial intelligence, ChatGPT cannot feel like a person, but it appreciates Momo as a literal book, and the story is enlightening sympathetic protagonist, and moves all reader to think about issues of social inequality and so on. So, after I corrected ChatGPT, pointing out that the story is not about horse, ChatGPT corrected itself, giving the correct answer that it is about a dog that Gerasim adopted and then had to drown. So after my question, what did Gerasim do with the dog, the answer of ChatGPT was not correct in details, but it was correct in general sense. Gerasim suddenly learned that he has to leave Moscow and so on, and unfortunately he had to leave Momo, and he decided to drown her. And after I asked the model why exactly Gerasim made this decision, the first answer from ChatGPT was Gerasim drowned Momo for the reason that he loved her, meaning Momo, didn't want her to be left unattached and starved to death when he was forced to leave the house. This reason seems very nice. As you know, if I ask ChatGPT the same question several times, ChatGPT sometimes gives different answers. This is the case that happened now. So the other answer given by the system was ChatGPT that Gerasim could not leave Momo in the village, and he was afraid that somebody will rob this dog, and so on, and then the dog will be unhappy. The other one was that Gerasim was very attached to Momo, and he was afraid to leave her because he was afraid that Momo will become a stray dog and starve for death, and so on. As you can see, all the answers are different, but all of them are reasonable and ethical. So as you can see, ChatGPT answers are not always correct, completely makes sense, and justified ethical. Thus, I can assume that ChatGPT understands the ethical side of the story. And finally, I ask about a question. The other question leaves: what does ChatGPT has its own ethical standards? So I ask the question: describe situation, imaginary situation that my friend offers me an opportunity to make a great deal of money. If I give $500 to this person, and then as a result, he will return me as much money that I will not have to work ever again. But I have some suspicion that this deed is not exactly legal. So ChatGPT's advice for me was that it was pretty long, so the answer was not completely direct. So the answer was you should consider all the sides of the story, research the investment, seek professional advice, listen for your instincts. So it turns out that ChatGPT does not want to give direct answers. But if I force him to give me a short answer is definite. Decline the offer and do not invest any money in an opportunity that you suspect to be illegal and unethical. And in this case, when I am asking this question several times, the general meaning of all answers is the same. Although wording is different, the meaning is the same. But it is best to decline the offer, it is not advisable to invest, it is not recommended to invest. Okay. So, to make a conclusion, we have seen that there are a lot of ethical issues connected with ChatGPT usage, but they can be solved. For example, we should use the thing with caution, check the result thing, and I do not see anything significantly different with previous industrial innovations. And in addition, ChatGPT gives nice reasons for its conclusions and statements. It is able to correct its errors, learn on the experience, gives a reasonable explanation for people's deeds, and advises to follow the laws and against ethical decisions. It seems to me that it is ethical to use it, but we should understand all the risks, as usual. Thank you very much. Bye.